The studio lights burn bright, casting a warm glow over the sleek set of This Week with George Stephanopoulos. The audience, a mix of eager viewers and industry insiders, sits on the edge of their seats, their anticipation palpable as George, with his polished demeanor and sharp journalistic instincts, welcomes one of Hollywood's most revered icons, Denzel Washington. George, in his tailored suit, leans forward, his trademark smile both welcoming and probing, ready to dive into a conversation that promises to be a highlight of the season. "Denzel, it's an honor to have you here," he begins, his voice steady, practiced, the kind that's guided countless high-profile interviews. "Your new film has everyone talking, but there's also been a lot of buzz about your recent comments on the state of Hollywood and its influence on culture. Care to elaborate?" The question seems innocuous, a soft lob meant to ease Denzel into the discussion, but there's a glint in George's eye, a hint that he's fishing for something deeper, something that might stir the pot. Denzel, dressed in a sharp blazer, exudes his signature charisma, but his posture stiffens slightly, a subtle shift that only the most attentive viewers might catch. He leans back, his gaze locking onto George's, and the air in the studio thickens. "George, you know I don't play these games," Denzel says, his voice low, measured, but carrying an edge that sends a ripple through the room. "Hollywood's got its issues, sure, but I'm not here to feed the headlines you're chasing." The audience murmurs, sensing the tension, and George, ever the professional, keeps his smile, but his fingers tighten around his note cards. He presses on, undeterred, pivoting to a more pointed question about Denzel's outspoken views on media bias, a topic that's been making waves online. "Some say your critiques come from a place of frustration with how stories are told today. Is that fair?" George asks, his tone polite but probing, the kind of question that's meant to peel back layers. Denzel's jaw tightens, and he lets out a short, dry laugh, one that doesn't reach his eyes. "Frustration? Nah, George, it's about truth. You folks in the media love to twist narratives to fit your agenda, and I'm not here to be your soundbite." The words land like a punch, and the audience gasps, a collective intake of breath that echoes through the studio. George, caught off guard, blinks rapidly, his composure slipping for a fraction of a second. He's used to tough interviews, but Denzel's intensity is something else entirely, a force that fills the room and demands attention. The crew behind the cameras exchanges glances, sensing that this interview is veering into uncharted territory. George tries to steer things back, offering a light chuckle and saying, "Well, let's talk about the film then, get back to safer ground." But Denzel isn't having it. He leans forward now, his voice rising just enough to command the room without shouting. "Safer ground? That's the problem, George. You want safe. You want me to sit here and smile while you push buttons, but I'm not that guy." The audience is riveted, some leaning forward, others whispering to their neighbors, as Denzel continues, his words sharp and deliberate. "I've been in this game long enough to know when someone's trying to box me in, and I'm not here for it. You want to talk about my work? Fine, but don't come at me with these loaded questions dressed up as journalism." George's face flushes, a rare crack in his polished exterior, and he opens his mouth to respond, but Denzel holds up a hand. "Not done yet. I'm here to talk about art. About stories that matter, not to be your clickbait for tomorrow's headlines." The studio is silent now, the weight of Denzel's words hanging in the air, and George, for the first time in what feels like forever, seems at a loss. He shuffles his notes, searching for a way to regain control, but the moment belongs to Denzel, who sits back, his point made, his presence undeniable. The producer in the control booth signals to cut to commercial, but the cameras linger for a beat too long, capturing the stunned look on George's face, a mix of shock and grudging respect. The internet is already buzzing, clips of the exchange spreading like wildfire, with hashtags like #Denzel vs. George trending within minutes. This is no ordinary interview. This is a moment that will be dissected, debated, and memed for weeks to come. A clash of titans that no one saw coming but everyone will remember. As the commercial break ends, the cameras roll back onto the set, where the atmosphere remains charged, like the air before a storm. George Stephanopoulos, ever the seasoned host, has regained some of his composure, though his smile is tighter now, less effortless. He adjusts his tie, a small gesture that betrays his unease, and dives back in, determined to salvage the interview. "Welcome back to This Week," he says, his voice steady but with a hint of caution, as if he's navigating a minefield. "We're here with Denzel Washington, and we're diving into some real talk today." The audience chuckles nervously, unsure whether to expect another flare-up or a return to civility. Denzel, meanwhile, sits with the calm of a man who's said his piece and has nothing left to prove. His eyes, sharp and unyielding, stay fixed on George, but there's a flicker of amusement now, as if he's enjoying the challenge of this verbal sparring match. George pivots to Denzel's latest film, a gritty drama that's already generating Oscar buzz, hoping to anchor the conversation in safer waters. "Your performance in this film has been called transformative," he says, reading from his notes, his tone deliberately neutral. "Can you walk us through your process for getting into such a complex character?" It's a softball question, one designed to let Denzel shine, but the earlier tension still lingers, and Denzel seems to sense the shift in strategy. He nods, acknowledging the question, but his response is anything but conventional. "Process, George? It's not about process. It's about soul. You don't just get into a character, you live it, you breathe it. You carry their pain and their joy. That's what people don't get about acting. It's not a trick, it's truth." His words are passionate, almost poetic, and the audience leans in, captivated by the raw honesty in his voice. George nods, trying to keep up, but Denzel's not done. "See, that's what's wrong with how you guys cover this stuff. You want a neat little answer, a soundbite to package and sell, but life ain't like that. Art ain't like that." The dig is subtle but unmistakable, and George's smile falters again, though he covers it with a quick sip of water. The audience senses the undercurrent, their eyes darting between the two men, waiting for the next spark. George, determined to maintain control, shifts gears again, bringing up Denzel's mentorship of younger actors, a topic he hopes will keep things positive. "You've been a guiding light for so many in the industry," he says, his tone warm but careful. "What advice do you give to those just starting out?" Denzel pauses, considering the question, and for a moment, it seems like the interview might settle into a more traditional rhythm. "I tell them to stay true," he says finally, his voice softer now but no less intense. "Don't let this industry chew you up. Don't let people like you." He stops himself, catching the words before they fully escape, but the implication is clear, and the audience gasps again, a low hum of excitement rippling through the room. George raises an eyebrow, his journalistic instincts kicking in, sensing an opportunity to push back. "People like who, Denzel?" he asks, his voice calm but with a challenge beneath it. The room holds its breath, and Denzel smiles, a slow, deliberate smile that's equal parts charm and defiance. "People who want to put you in a box," he says, his words cutting through the air like a blade. "People who want to control the narrative, who think they can define you with a question or a headline." The audience erupts in applause, some cheering, others clapping more cautiously, unsure how to process the moment. George, now visibly rattled, tries to laugh it off, but his chuckle is hollow, and the cameras catch every micro-expression. He pivots again, asking about Denzel's work with charities, but the question feels like a desperate attempt to change the subject. Denzel answers briefly, his tone polite but distant, as if he's already checked out of the interview's pretense. "I do what I do because it's right," he says, "not because it looks good on camera." The rebuke is gentle but pointed, and George nods, his face a mask of professionalism, though the strain is evident. The producer signals for another break, and as the cameras cut away, the studio buzzes with energy, the audience whispering furiously, some pulling out their phones to tweet about the clash. Online, the moment is already going viral, with fans praising Denzel's unapologetic honesty and others speculating about what's happening behind the scenes. George, meanwhile, takes a deep breath, preparing for the next segment, knowing that this interview has already become the stuff of legend. Back from the break, the studio feels like a pressure cooker, the tension between George Stephanopoulos and Denzel Washington simmering just beneath the surface. George, ever the professional, has smoothed his features into a practiced smile, but there's a wariness in his eyes now, a recognition that he's dealing with a guest who won't be easily managed. "We're back with Denzel Washington," he says, his voice projecting confidence, though the audience can sense the effort it takes. "Let's talk about your legacy, Denzel. You've had an incredible career at Oscars, iconic roles, a voice that resonates across generations. How do you want to be remembered?" It's a classic interview question, one meant to elicit reflection and maybe a touch of humility, but Denzel's not here for the script. He leans forward, his elbows resting on his knees, his presence commanding the room without effort. "Legacy, George? I don't sit around thinking about legacy," he says, his tone a mix of amusement and exasperation. "That's for other people to decide. I'm too busy living, working, telling stories that matter." "You want to know what I want? I want people to feel something when they watch my films. I want them to think, to question, to see the world a little differently." That's it. The audience claps, drawn in by his sincerity, but Denzel's not playing for applause. He's speaking from a place of deep conviction, and it's clear he's not here to pander. George, sensing an opportunity to dig deeper, leans in, his journalistic instincts kicking in. "That's powerful, Denzel, but you've also been vocal about the industry's flaws, about representation, about authenticity. Some say you're calling out Hollywood's hypocrisy. Is that your mission?" The question is loaded, and the audience leans forward, sensing another potential flashpoint. Denzel's eyes narrow slightly, and he takes a moment before responding, as if weighing whether to take the bait. "Mission? I don't have a mission, George. I have a responsibility to myself, to my craft, to the people who watch my work. Hollywood's got its problems, no question. It's a machine that loves to pat itself on the back while ignoring the real issue. Said diversity, sure, but also integrity, storytelling that doesn't just chase trends or profits." His voice rises now, not in anger but in passion, and the audience is hanging on every word. "You want to talk about hypocrisy? Let's talk about how the media you include loves to amplify division, to turn everything into a fight for clicks and views. That's not my game." The accusation lands hard, and George's smile tightens, his fingers tapping lightly on the desk, a telltale sign of discomfort. He tries to redirect, bringing up Denzel's work with young filmmakers, but Denzel cuts him off, not rudely but firmly. "Hold up, George, let's not gloss over this. You asked about my mission, so let me be clear. I'm here to tell the truth as I see it, not to play nice for your show." The audience erupts again, some cheering, others gasping, as the energy in the room spikes. George, now visibly struggling to keep the interview on track, tries to inject some humor. "Well, Denzel, you're certainly keeping me on my toes today," he says, forcing a laugh, but it's clear he's rattled. The cameras catch every nuance of the slight flush in his cheeks, the way his eyes dart to the control booth, looking for guidance. Denzel, meanwhile, sits back, his expression calm but unyielding, a man who's said what he needed to say and is ready for whatever comes next. George pushes forward, asking about Denzel's future projects, but the answers are short, almost perfunctory, as if Denzel's focus is elsewhere. "I'm working on things that matter," he says simply, "stories that need to be told." The audience claps again, but there's a sense that the interview is no longer just a conversation, it's a showdown, a clash of perspectives that's as much about the state of media as it is about Denzel's career. As the segment nears its end, George tries one last time to regain control, thanking Denzel for his candor and promising to continue the conversation another time. Denzel nods, his smile polite but distant, and as the cameras pull back, the audience is left buzzing, their phones lighting up with posts about the explosive exchange. Online, the clip is already being dissected, with fans praising Denzel's fearlessness and critics debating whether he went too far. George, meanwhile, wraps up the show with his usual polish, but there's a slight tremor in his voice, a hint that this interview has shaken him in a way few others have.